God vibes only. 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 God vibes only.
rich man?
When you mean rich, what you mean?
You have a lot of possessions? A lot of money in the bank?
Position make you rich? I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life forever.
God vibes only. God vibes only. God vibes only. God vibes only.
Go vibes.
Thank you for tuning in to the Push It Forward Podcast Network. I'm your humbled executive producer, Harut, and this is the Cosmic Convos podcast. On Cosmic Convos, Brother Ra and myself gets into how to utilize sidereal astrology as a powerful organizing tool for your life. Whether you're talking about starting a family, getting married, raising children, starting a business, going into a new career, what career you need to choose, and a whole host of other topics relevant to everyone's life. All right. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, where we release exclusive content to all of our patrons, and you get the opportunity to directly interact with us and ask questions and even help us determine the shows that we cover on our weekly podcast. All right. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I am your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing, brother?
Brother, loving life. How about yourself, King?
Hey, man, no complaints, man. No complaints. Just trying to get like you, my brother.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Indeed. Hey, but before we get too far, I want to make sure you all like and subscribe to this channel, and then hit that notification bell so you can know when we go live or whatnot. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Calipusha Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Big up to y'all. If you want to connect with us on the other social media platforms and different things like that, you can follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's CosmicConvo. And from there, you can get to all the other outlets, all the other podcasts and everything like that. You can get with me directly, and you can get with Brother Ra. To that point, Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
Several ways. You can get at me on Facebook or IG via Shekam Ra, or on Facebook via Calipusha Astrology. You can also hit me up at calipushastrology.com, or you can get at me via calipushastrology@gmail.com. And I'm also on Twitter via Calipusha Astrology as well. So we pretty much got all platforms covered. And if you want to send me a message or something on YouTube via Calipusha Astrology, we're here as well.
Indeed. So, as you all know, we've been a little off these past couple of weeks. So, time gets away and stuff like that. I had some family time and stuff like that. Ra had some things going on, and it just couldn't put it all together. But we here now. We good or whatnot. So definitely expect us to round the season off pretty well and hit you hard, ready for season 6 as well. So be on the lookout for that or whatnot. Last one we left off, we talked about the Young Thug situation or whatnot. I wish we had a good time on Gunna, because I think he just went for another bail hearing and was denied. But by proxy of looking at Young Thug's chart I mean, he's like the leader in the situation, so a lot of this is kind of being driven by his destiny, and others are wrapped up in that as well. So it still definitely is relevant to it, but you know, you just kind of see those things unfold or whatnot. You've been keeping an eye on that a little bit, Raw.
Yeah, definitely been keeping my ears to the streets and eyes to the sky. Um, that is definitely what they call the trickle down theory, where
Sheesh.
the top, let's say, what have you rolls downhill. Well, that's pretty much the cliche in this case. Um, and I think what happens to him will be a domino effect in essence. So we'll kind of see it, one piece after the other. But it's not looking too great for Mr. Jeffrey. So I definitely, as we discussed last time, see the chips coming out, being played out to in its entirety. As we discussed, he's definitely got an uphill battle. So and then it's interesting to note that his nephew was just charged with a murder case.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that's not looking too good in the family side of things. That fam just went down for a murder case, and I'm stuck in here for RICO charges. So yeah, it's unfortunate the way the dominoes are falling over for him, but all the best to the brothers, and hopefully they can get through this in some degree of integrity.
Indeed, indeed, yeah, man. It's interesting times, you know. A lot of you know, that martial energy is definitely in full effect. And I think today we're gonna be kind of barking up that tree as well or whatnot. With today's show or whatnot. Before we get into today's show, did you have anything, any announcements, anything like that you wanted to lay on the people?
No, it's just interesting that the last time we discussed R. Kelly, right? We were kind of waiting for the chips to fall where they may,
Right.
and he's got K2 in his ascendant, and that 30 years, I'm sure, is a shock and awe that K2 is produced and reverberating and kind of, redirecting the rest of his life if he doesn't get through with this appeal process. So,
Yeah, they're playing hardball with R. Kelly because if you all right, I'm not absolving R. Kelly at all right? But
mhm.
just as far as the legality of it, I don't know. I got to look at the evidence a little bit more to see if it's 30 years is justified based off of
It's
what
not.
they
It's
what
not.
they tried him for.
I don't think it is.
It seems like they're just trying to get some get back.
Yeah, I agree. I
You know,
agree.
and I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of that, right? I think you got to get them. You got to get them. If it's something there's some wrongdoing, you gotta stick to the confines of what you have, um, you know, or what. Now, I'm not a fan of trying to stretch it and make it happen just because you think that something happened, so you want to make sure this person gets a sentence, but that's a slippery slope. You know what I mean, or
Yeah,
whatnot.
it is. Yeah, and they were saying that he should have pled guilty and or been remorseful,
Hmm.
and didn't say anything, but it's chestnut checkers, if you're filing for an appeal,
Hmm.
it's very
Then you can't
difficult. You can't
you
really
can't take
do
a
that.
plea. Can't
Right.
take a plea.
You can't be, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the leniency of the court. It just goes like that. If you're looking for an appeal, best thing to do is just keep your mouth shut and look forward, and let the next process take its natural course. So,
Right.
it is interesting though that K2, if I'm correct, when we talked about R. Kelly, was K2 in Libra? I'm trying to remember.
No.
It wasn't, was it?
Mm-mm, not yet.
No. So that K2 in his ascendant, is a bomb. You know, it's an implosion that's reverberating, I'm sure, throughout his spirit, and like, man, I may not see the light of day. I'm gonna die an old man in here if I make it. If I don't make it. So it's interesting that we're seeing these things play out. Also, interestingly enough, Rahu and Aries with this Mars conjunction, we have an assassination on our hands, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
From
So,
the Japanese prime minister, former
right,
prime minister. Yeah,
right.
that's
Um, that's deep, and that doesn't happen that often in Japan. They don't have guns. The man made the gun. He made that gun, right? So I mean, the Rahu and Aries energy is compulsory, right? To the level of creating a weapon when that country doesn't have, it's very stringent and restrictive on gun laws. So, I mean, that's just uncanny, right? And to think that, I mean, assassination of a head of state or a leader in a country that's fairly, I'm not going to say just peaceful, but I mean, they don't have a whole lot of riffraff and crime. They have it, but it's not like America or China or any major country. It's fairly controlled. So that shows you the force of this energy at its full extension. And we're going to get a lot more. Just wait and see, folks. We're not even halfway there yet. So, interesting that this has transpired here as of recent.
indeed, indeed, indeed. So yeah, y'all definitely be safe out there. Definitely be safe out there. Keep them. Try to keep your temper. You know what I mean, and stuff like that under control. Because if any time something can go left, it can go left now. It can definitely go left.
And will go left now.
You know, indeed, indeed, indeed. I mean, shoot, that and the Highland Park situation in Chicago.
Another one. Remember,
Right.
we said on this podcast, beware
Mm-hmm.
of groups and social gatherings, didn't we? Right.
Yep. Yep.
It
Absolutely.
happened. It happened. And, it's just like you're going to see something somewhere, somehow, some way for this to come to fruition. Not only that, and on the Kalapurusha Astrology channel, I mentioned the Saturn retrograde and these revolts. Well, Rahu in Aries with Mars combined is exacerbating. The Angarak yogic is exacerbating it. And look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, they came in and tore that man's house up. The president, they burnt it down.
Jeez, it's gonna be. It's a hot summer for sure. So definitely stay alert, stay aware. For sure. But you I think you're muted, Rock.
How that happened? Yeah, keep your head on that swivel, right? I was just
Absolutely.
mentioning, that Sri Lanka piece, if in case no one heard it, right? That Sri Lanka piece, that's a sign not only of Saturn retrograde, but Mars in Aries compounding it. It's compounding it. That is heavy, heavy stuff, right? They burnt the man's house to a singe, right? Um, right? It's a wrap, right? When it comes to Sri Lankan government right now, they're not, they don't want to hear anything except get us out of this financial rut. So, um, these things are just as the stars foretell, right, on the horizon, and we got a lot more to go. Right? We do.
Absolutely. And the way how some things are looking in the economy for the US.
Right.
Might be some interesting things going on with our leadership as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. I
And
have to agree there.
indeed, indeed. Well, on a bit of a lighter note, but still, one of the main culprits is in play for today's show. You know, wanted to if you've seen the cover art, the thumbnail, we're talking about what, do you have what it takes to become a pro athlete? And essentially is, there are very, very key things that you want to see in a particular chart that can help propel someone to the professional level on, in the athletic realm, in the athletic industry or whatnot. And a lot of us played sports. Some of us were pretty good at there, but there's a clear difference, between, the elites and, the high school stars and the, even though the high school stars, they, some of them do become elite, but there's a difference between, that person and the person that goes all the way or whatnot. And we're going to kind of, cover a medley of charts to kind of show this. And, this is very consistent, Are there a few exceptions? Yes, but there's some things that are called to that. But the overwhelmingly majority of the charts, we'll see some of these key factors play out. So let's go ahead and jump into that or whatnot.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's definitely do that. So, it's just amazing how when we look at this particular science, there's very little room for guesswork in
Right.
the sense that it just gives a dead ringer when you look at someone's chart and you're looking for something to create the internal milieu or internal atmosphere to produce great athletes. You know, it's almost, you don't even have to guess. When you see it, it's instant. You know it. That's where it's coming from. And the great thing that we can begin to learn is that not only can we see it in retrospect, but those of us that have children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, we can use this science to prime them for you know the greatness of their lives, and that we can time and produce effects that they don't even know before they even get started why they're being involved in a sport, a martial art, or something that is athletic. So,
Right.
And they take a natural liking to it, an inkling to it. And, those of us that, those people in life that have that, gut feeling, that intuition that, I know this is what you're going to be good at, or I'm going to put you in here because this is something that I see a propensity of in you. That's all great and grandeur because, you get something out of that because at that point you have the opportunity to realize that you made the right decision. But before that even comes about, before the baby is even stepped foot in their shoes, you can use this dynamic, this science, to put them in the position to become not only great athletes, but masters, right? People that have an acumen as far as athleticism that is uncanny. When you start them off very young, it becomes secondhand nature. They do it without thinking. They do it without forethought. They do it without, even, I mean, it becomes instantly ingrained in their being. And that's the beauty of the science. It's not just that we can see people that walk around that are doing certain things. We can use it to forecast and to guide, not only just in athletics, but other areas, science, you know, um, mathematics, all kind of different areas, religion, right, or spirituality, whatever that person is for the most part destined to do, you can see it before they even hit the ground running. And so we can use this to create a society and a community that now has the ability to carve out, right, those greats and manifest those beings that can make world changes. So that's the beauty of this power that we have. I mean, you can even use it to make one. How about that? You can use it to make one, right? If you know what you're doing and you have an adept astrologer, all right, you can use it to make one, right? So, I mean, go figure, right?
Right.
We can start, creating, lineages and doing things like that that start to, do what our ancestors did and create dynasties and things of that nature. So this is a very powerful tool in the right hands.
Funny, indeed. It's funny that you even mentioned that. Just a quick aside, about dynasties and stuff. And a lot of times when you study, especially some of our ancient ancestors in Africa and stuff like that, you see a point where certain generations start diverging and doing other things, and then you start seeing it go downhill from there
Right,
and stuff like that. So
right.
there's something to that.
There is something to that. Absolutely. And when we get off kilter and stop utilizing these or accessing these abilities, then like you said, it creates a domino effect of we start falling, right? And we got a chance to get back in the groove of things. Of course, it's not going to be a while before we actually start really utilizing on a grand scale. But think about creating a world leader. Think about creating a community leader, a political leader, right? These are in the constructs of the heavens, right? Rahu creates great political leaders. Of course, you got to be very careful, right? Because Rahu will definitely turn around and create someone that can be a megalomaniac, but at the same time, we can make great leaders, great politicians, great attorneys, whatever it is that we want to make, we can co create to do these things. And that is the power that we've been given through this science, for sure. So
Indeed.
let's get a little information going here and talk about what some of these things look like to kind of find and, you know, um, to examine what traits, astrological traits, produce, right? Great athletes. Number one planet on the list by far, beyond any reasonable doubt, is any type of interaction with Mars. That is
Right.
going to create the athleticism that you're looking for. It doesn't take much effort to find it, to realize it, to trace it. It's sitting there. It's sitting there. And it's going to look right back at you when you find and start doing the legwork. So Mars is key, right? And I would say without Mars, you really don't have that athleticism. You don't have that internal drive, that discipline, that force to really manifest.
Competitiveness.
Yeah, the competitiveness, the fearlessness to
Right.
do anything in athletics, because it takes that. It doesn't matter what type of athletics it is, in gymnastics, in track and field, in tennis, in swimming, anything that involves using that force or energy to push beyond and to, become a winner. Mars is the quintessential key to it all. Right? So as we talk, we have an Angarak Yog, right?
Right.
If someone were born at this time, let's say between June and August, 10th, late June, August to August 10th, that person's going to have a very prominent Mars placement in somewhere in some point in their chart, right?
Man, somebody was born a few days ago, man, and then with the right ascendant, phew,
Right, right. You see what I'm saying?
because all everything, all planets are in dignity, were in dignity in their own signs. That's interesting.
Right, you're right. We did have that. Good looking, because we actually did have a very interesting transit recently where every planet was in, and for the most part, five, right, were in their own respective signs.
Hmm.
You can't get any better than that, especially if that ascendant, that time of birth, happens to be, at a certain point where Gemini, Aries, Scorpio, any of those, yeah, you're gonna have an athlete on your hands. So if you have any babies that came out there any recent times, definitely take notice, right? In the last, let's say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, your baby has an Angarak Yog, right? That person's gonna have martial dispositions no matter, right? So interesting enough. But one thing we always want to look for, just pure point blank indications. And of course, this is not always the case, but you want to look for consistency. You want to have that ascendant being oriented around Mars. It can be um, It can be Aries ascendant, Scorpio ascendant, or it can even have Mars in the ascendant. So if you see those traits, right, it's a good chance the person themselves are going to have that energy resonating with their identity. They're going to identify with being a fighter, with being someone that kicks butt and then takes names. That person that doesn't have any fear or any lack of courage or any lack of ambition or drive. So by all means, right, when you see that in a chart, just note quickly that person has a athleticism at their disposal. Again, it doesn't always mean that, but it's a good chance or high probability that they will. Of course, Mars is not just responsible for athleticism. It could be entrepreneurial abilities, it could be executive powers where the person can climb ladders and stuff like that. That's also something that's Mars, but you'll see more of things that are capitulated in the sense of business and things of that nature. So that will be something that we may have to cover a show on, maybe the power of entrepreneurship in Mars. But for the most part, Mars will bring an athletic disposition in some form or fashion at some point in life. So that's one telltale sign. Another, and we're going to see these in these charts. As soon as we pop the charts, just watch the magic. Watch how we'll see exactly where those planets are placed, and it almost is a dead ringer.
Yeah.
Another telltale sign is the moon in Aries or Scorpio. That's also going to give that mentality of having a competitive edge. They may not be, let's say, par excellence, but you at least will see something in their life that they say, hey, I want to do this. I want to play this. I want to try this. I want to exact this. And they will have the energy, the mental energy, and the emotional disposition to do so with that moon in that particular area and disposition. Also, moon aspected or conjunct Mars can do the same thing. So watch as we begin to just pull. It's almost like you can just pick one and say, who's that? Put it up, it's there. That's how easy, and you can't do that with Western astrology, my people. It doesn't work, right? These signs won't even capitulate the same energy patterns because they're going to be off a sign for the most part. So it just doesn't work. But with this science, it's a dead ringer. So with Mars aspecting or conjuncting the moon, also something to consider, especially if that moon is in Aries or in Scorpio. Another, this one is actually very interesting. It's not necessarily just Mars, of course, and let's just kind of get Mars out of the way real quick. Mars in the first, Mars in the third, Mars in the fifth as well, sixth, and 10th house, right, are almost instant athletes. At times, it can also be in the ninth house as well, right? Also, those produce athletic dispositions, but not always the ninth house. You have to see other combinations. But here's one outside of Mars that does do the trick, and this is amazing: the ascendant Lord in the sixth house. That there will generate someone with a competitive edge because the sixth house deals with competition. It deals with dealing with enemies, adversities, things that are seemingly oppositional to you. So the ascendant lord in the sixth house also is something that you will see, right? Just a giving. I would even almost forgot to mention ascendant Lord conjunct Mars. That also definitely generates something that creates a martial disposition. So, ascendant Lord in the sixth house, I was just doing research and I just said, let me see. I picked it, boom. If it wasn't there, I saw one of the other combinations. If and or not that combination as well. So just note, right, that these things are very powerful in creating these types of dispositions. One other piece of the puzzle is what's called a Ruchaka yoga. Now, Ruchaka yoga is one of the Mahapurusha yogas. I think we even talked about that on one of our shows, the Mahapurusha yogas, right? Um, that's when Mars is in the first, fourth, seventh, or 10th in either an exalted position or in its own sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that can also give it, but the ones that produce the most is the first house, and in this order: first house, 10th house, and then fourth house. Seventh house, not so much, because the seventh house particularly becomes the person's mate and or partner, and that person can even be athletic in the sense that whom they marry or whom they're attracted to in the long-term sense of things. So this is also something you can use to even see about partnerships or marital combinations. But that ascendant lord in the sixth house, definitely a dead ringer. Um, you can have the ascendant lord in the third house, and the third house is the house that is about being self-willed, about being driven, about being expressive, and it's also the house of courage. So it's the sixth house, but the third house is as well. And the third house is the 10th from the sixth, right? Would make perfect sense that it's a higher expression of the sixth house matters. So these are certain combinations you can just take to the bank. If you see planets in that third house, just take note, see if there's a Martial interaction. Boom, athleticism. Um, the ascendant lord is always going to be key because that takes you to the niche in life you'll find yourself in. So ascendant lord in the third, again, ascendant lord in the sixth, ascendant lord in the ninth sometimes, and the ascendant lord in the 10th are also their giveaways, right? For someone that is willing to go the mile, willing to put themselves out there, willing to go beyond. And if you ever know anything about these houses, 3, 6, 10, and 11, right? 11 is also one as well. These are all called upachaya houses. They're houses that get better over time, right? The houses that allow you to overcome things in a gradual and a momentous in a momentous way. So these are also telltale signs as well. And this is just easy stuff that you can begin to look for. And if you pull the athlete's chart, you got a good time. Take a look and you'll be amazed, right? That you will see these combinations. And I swear to you, it's about 80 to 85 to 90% within that, but within about a window of 85 to 90%, you're going to see this. There's a 10%, there's always a possibility of, wiggle room depending on certain placements and aspects. But for the most part, right, you're going to see it. And one last one, which was very surprising to me. Um, what is the athlete's name? The quarterback, white fella for the New England Patriots. I can't remember his name.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. He didn't have that many Marshall placements, but he did have Saturn. Saturn was positioned in certain places that also gave him that need and drive for competition. So this is also something that kind of in a tertiary way can produce athleticism, but again, it has to be in certain positions like the sixth house, the 10th house, the seventh house sometimes because of the aspect. So it's just strangely enough, right, that it does have an effect on the competitive edge. I was very surprised. I thought I was going to see something martial. And that's like I said, within that between 15 to 10%, 15%, you're going to have those charts that won't just be that. But for the most part, you just keep pulling them and do your research. You're going to see those combinations that I gave you earlier. So, with that being said, let's take a look to see if we can kind of tie these in as far as these placements and see if we can just off the rip see them, right? Because it's not something that you have to rehearse or think about. We just pull it and see. And if any one of you, that we want to be a little bit more interactive, if you have an athlete's good time, place and date, give it to us, right? We can take a look and see, right, if this holds true. So always remember, this is Cosmic Convos. We want to have you as the audience participate and chime in with us and, really get the conversation going. Because at some point you may even be able to come on the show and we all sit down and have a nice conversation about it. So let's definitely see what we got here as far as some of these charts we're going to look at.
Now, one thing I did want to mention with that would make sense with the quarterback position, because it's a unique position, and even relative to other professional sports.
True.
It's martial, but it's really more. That's
mental.
like it's really legit a coach on the
Hmm.
field. You know, it really
Right,
it
right.
leans harder on leadership. Than physical ability has to be there, but it's really about your mind. You know what I'm saying, and your
Hmm.
ability to, you know what I mean, to lead. And
True, true.
perform
That's
at the
very
same
true.
time. You
Right.
know, so that is one thing because I know Tom. I think he has Mars in the ninth.
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
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 or
yeah.
whatnot.
So a
But
master of martial disposition or abilities, for sure.
right, and he's a one on one too. So I mean, like there's not too many professional athletes that has a career like him. And
True,
so it
true.
makes sense he would have a something special, something different going on in this chart
Right, right.
for
He's a
sure.
he's a one of a kind. Yeah, definitely.
Indeed. So let's see what we got here. All right. Well, I got good old Michael Jeffrey Jordan up here first or
MJ.
whatnot. Yeah. Big up to
MJ.
him.
Wow, interesting. There's that moon, right? There it is in Scorpio, in the sixth house, right? The mentality and the mind, right?
Right.
The mentality and the mind of a competitor. Not only that, he has a Parvatana yoga between Mars and Moon.
Yep.
So Mars is going to act like it's in the sixth house. So bar none, again, just right off the rip, Scorpio Mars is activated through Moon and Scorpio, and the sixth house is activated through the Moon being in that position. Bingo. Real easy, short, sweet, to the point, no doubt. This man has a competitive edge that is almost sickening to a point because he doesn't even want to be compared to LeBron James. He gets irritated when you compare him to LeBron James, right?
He don't want to be
He's like,
compared to nobody.
he doesn't. He doesn't. And I mean, okay, Mike, you had your day, right? We give it up, man. In that day, in that era, you were the man. But hey, it's a new day, right? It's a new era, right? And you can't even get on the field and do the same things in the least little bit that you did. So you got to give props for props too. But that's the competitive mind. That's the competitive disposition. I'm not going to give up my title as being the best of the GOAT, as they say, right? I'm not going to give that up. But I can understand looking at the disposition in the chart. It makes perfect sense. So, by all means, right, Moon and Scorpio in the sixth house definitely shows Michael Jordan as a premier athlete, definitely. And with the exchange with Mars and Moon from the second house of Cancer to the sixth house of Scorpio, it just heightens it even more.
Indeed, and the nakshatras that's all involved. Ardra ascendant, Ashleisha, Mars is in that, Moon and Jeshta. I mean, those are all, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't even mention the nakshatras. Thank you, brother. That really, kind of pulled that whole energy together. Ashlesha is definitely one that is competitive. Ardra is one that's competitive. Uh, Ardra, Ashlesha, Jayesta, right? Purva Ashada, Uttara Ashada, all of them, right, can create that drive, right, to win at all cost, right?
Indeed.
And yeah, I
Indeed.
mean, without a doubt, man. Perfect example. Perfect example.
Let's see what we got here. Let's all right. Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. All right. Got good old LeBron James sitting here.
I mean, interestingly enough, there's that Gemini ascending again, right? right? Once again, right, we've got a Martial impact. But before we even talk about the Martial impact, right, take a look at where the Ascendant Lord is in the sixth house. If you see that Ascendant Lord in the sixth house, it's almost as if they can't help but compete. They can't help but compete. Now, I know Will Smith has it. I know what you're out there thinking, right? Right. But Will Smith is a little different. And even Will, though, to some degree, I mean, he did slap Chris Rock, right? So maybe it just came to pass where he had to get that martial energy out in some way. But Taurus and Venus and the whole capitulation of that smooth energy, smooth operator, it's going to reduce that type of martial disposition. But Gemini is a natural competitor, right? It has the third house as Leo, right? And the third house again is courage. So it makes just perfect sense for Gemini to produce someone that has that type of, you know, innate need to show off and to do things in a very uh, precise way, or in a way that really calls home for to their abilities. But the ascendant lord in the sixth house is a dead ringer. I'm telling you, keep looking at charts and you see that ascendant lord in the sixth house, you're going to see a competitive disposition. Not only that, look at where the sixth lord is, right? That sixth lord is if I'm not mistaken, in the ninth house, right? That gives him the ability to be a master of destiny in the sense of athleticism, without a doubt. Right? That's who he's designed to be. And not only that, excuse me, K2 also can give that kind of edge, right? To bring past life experiences as far as talents and gifts, right? Talents and gifts to be competitive or to be driven. So the sixth house is a telltale overall dead giveaway for competitiveness. And it doesn't necessarily just mean athleticism. It can mean war. It can be soldiering. It can be military. It can be police. Something will give its way or rear its head, in the sense that if Mars is in this, if the ascendant lord is in the sixth house, that's going to show that power and ability. So for
Yeah.
all intents and purposes, you can see it dead on. This, remember, I gave it a list. So go back, listen to the list, write it down. See if you see this ascendant lord in the sixth house. Even like we talk about, we just got through with MJ, moon in the sixth house, moon in Scorpio, right? These things are going to be a consistent theme. So bar none, right? LeBron, hands down, has that particular disposition. There's some other things I won't talk about per se that give him all these kind of abilities to reach this height. Um, and we've done it. We've done LeBron's James chart. So if you go back and listen to that, you can hear, right, and find out what happened in his life that transpires to give him this ability. But nonetheless, right, he definitely is one that is a supreme competitor, right?
But
No doubt.
absolutely. And he also became the first billionaire active player, professional athlete or NBA player
Wow.
for sure.
Wow.
Shout out to that.
Definitely, definitely, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Indeed. All right. Um,
Who
shoot,
we
we
got
got
next? Oh
Serena
my
Williams.
goodness gracious! Right.
We gotta be nice to her, man.
We got
we
him.
been
Yeah,
giving
we go. Okay, right. We don't want no smoke, Rita. We don't want no smoke. Right.
because we've been beating her up for a grip, man, or whatnot.
Yeah,
So give
I
her
don't want that
some.
backhand swing coming this way.
Absolutely not. That thing
I
gonna
don't want
hurt.
that backhand, girl. Leave, please. We cool, right?
You might not make it.
You ain't gay. You might have to pick your face up somewhere else, right?
Somebody might have to get it for you.
I'm trying to tell you, right? Right. Again, dead ringer, right? Look at the ascendant, instant. Martial rule ascendant, Mars rule ascendant. Bingo. You can't get any better, right? And that ascendant lord is powerful, even though it's debilitated, right? It's in the fourth house. So she was brought up to be an athlete, raised to be an athlete, designed to
and
be an athlete.
and sometimes that, I mean, from what I've seen, that Mars, debilitated
Mhm.
Mars in particular, especially for a
It
woman,
can. Because
it
look, we just had Michael Jordan. Mars is what?
debilitated.
Debilitated.
But it's like that. It's more than, like, some people are just competitive, competitive. But a lot of times when I see that Mars and Cancer like that, that's where you
Hmm.
really see a lot of that chip on the shoulder.
Chip on the
It's like,
shoulder. Yes, yes, yes.
it's personal. It's like, it's coming from a place. It's different. You know what I'm saying? It's competitive, but it's coming from a personal place. It's like, I'm trying to prove something. You know what I mean? Or I'm
Yep.
going to do. It's a different
It's like the
type of
deficit has to
drive.
be filled by their actions.
Right.
The deficit
Right.
has to be pushed out and brought to fruition to prove I'm not weak, I'm not scared. I have I have courage. You can't punk me. Don't think, don't even try, right? Because it's that hair trigger with Mars and Cancer that can produce the instant reaction, right? That, they can feel it from their gut level, you know. Mars that the stomach is ruled by Cancer, so that instant gut level of having to get it out. And here's the thing, it's actually very healthy for them to be in athletics when you have Mars and Cancer, because if not, it can eat away inside if they don't get it out. So by all means, you're right, Mars and Cancer does have that extra little something to make sure that they fight and get it out. You're right, brother. That's a good point. Definitely.
Indeed, and she got a temper too. Like, she's known for on the court. She'll break that racket, like beat it to death.
Bam, bam. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
different.
That's
Indeed.
definitely true.
Shout out to Serena Williams. All right, let's shoot. What since we were there, let's look at Naomi Osaka, since we on tennis or whatnot.
Right. Excellent. Good. Fall right in line. Now, again, you're like, well, Ra, there's no ascendant Lord in the sixth house, right? There's no Mars in the ascendant. It's not in the 10th house. But look where the moon is.
Hold up.
Check that moon. Check that
So
moon.
Aries.
It's in Aries. It's in Aries. Competitor. Driven. Ashwini, my goodness, I'm sorry, Ashwini, I forgot to mention that is one of the major competitive need for speed nakshatras, also producing a competitive drive, right? Also, Kritika Ken
Insurgents.
as well, Kritika Ken as well, but Ashwini is definitely one because it is the need for speed. They have the desire to be speedy, and guess what? This particular placement, right, is the fifth lord, which again, fifth house does produce or has a characteristic of creating sports like dispositions. So the intelligence is in Aries, and the moon, the mind is in Aries. So again, another perfect competitor, right? Taken to the top of her field. Now, Mars in the ninth house definitely gives some of that knowledge, right? Gives that higher perspective of sports, of sports science. I'm gonna even say this: sports science, right? Sports science, like LeBron, Mars in the ninth. She's definitely got that sports science type disposition. A scientist of athleticism. What is the science? Where should I put my pivot my feet? How should I hit my racket? Not from the heart per se, but from the higher thinking perspective, that this is someone that does that type of has that type of athleticism. So Mars, like I said, I mentioned earlier, the ninth house can do it if it's just in the right way. And it's excellent that you brought that up with the quarterback. He's got Mars in the ninth house too. So, it's a higher kind of perception of that athleticism. So she definitely, right, is one that can be, a hallmark picture of, martial connections or martial dispositions. So,
And, see,
you know,
and her, I mean,
she's
and it's
young
in
too,
Scorpio
and
too.
she's young, right? Exactly. Mars is in Scorpio in the ninth. So, and
Right.
she's young, right? She's still yet to have come through, right? And live to the fullness of her ability. So she's got some time, and watch her. She might be surprising you in the next 5 years, right? To be at the height of her game, her existence. Of course, we don't I'm not going to get into the dasha scheme because there's a way that you read the dashas that can still produce certain things, even if it's not a Mars dasha. But for all intents and purposes, right, she still has that particular power in her disposition, in her spirit. She has access to it within her being. So another Mars, another Mars, right there waiting on you. So start looking for this stuff, folks. And when you pull an athlete's chart, just find it, key in and find it. I guarantee you will see it.
Indeed, indeed. Let's look at our other Blasian, Black and Asian, our brother Tiger Woods.
Mr. Woods. Now, again, once again, look where the moon is. Look to that moon. Dead ringer. Moon is in Scorpio once again. Right. So moon in Scorpio, by all means, produces the effect. And it's in what? The third house.
Right.
Right. You
Look what.
can't get any better. Now, as I mentioned, if that martial aspect is produced with that particular placement, and you see Mars in the ninth house,
Mm-hmm.
boom, right? It's right there waiting on you. And there's a Parvatana what? Exchange again, isn't it? Right,
Yep. Venus and
right,
Mars.
right.
They and a
Parvatana,
mutual
some
aspect. I mean, it's a
that
mutual aspect and a Parvatana.
exactly. So they flip, right?
Right.
Mars is like it's with the moon, and Venus is like it's in the ninth house. So again, strong propensity for athleticism, and it's interesting. You can kind of see what this particular thing will produce in the houses that they create or they're in, because the third hand, his arms and his arms and upper chest, right, and that's where that swing comes in, right? That swing that he takes it and feels the wind, right? Feels, that kind of hairline sensibility, that sensory apparatus, and hits that ball, with that precision and that accuracy. So, by all means, right, it makes perfect sense for this position, for this to be in that position. So, it definitely is a hallmark of someone that is as a profound athlete. And like, we're just getting through these charts because there's just so many times you're going to see the repetitious disposition of Mars or the sixth house or the third house in play, right? In
Right.
some form or fashion.
Absolutely. Let's look at um let's look at Flojo. Yeah, Flojo.
Flow, G, man,
Say
man,
the
here it is
original.
again. It just is instant, isn't it? I mean, it's a no brainer. Ascendant Lord. Now we have the Ascendant Lord in the third house with Mars in the third house, in its own sign in the third house. You can't get any better, right? These are repetitious processes. I mean, there's so many people I could just start thinking of that just off the top, off the dome, I can guarantee you they're gonna have something like this if they're an athlete. Something is there that produces this power. So it is that. It's this Mars conjunct the ascendant Lord in the third house of self expression and courage. Once again, right? And it's in its own sign in Scorp. So, don't take the sign, the ascendant, to be so weak, like, because it's Virgo and they can, no, 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 no. Right? Tiger Woods was a Virgo, wasn't he?
So is Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, you're right. Tom Brady. That's what I was thinking, right? He is that Virgo. So don't think because it's Virgo now that they can't handle it. They can and they will, right? If Mars is impacting it in a very powerful and potent way. So by all means, right, you can see this as one of those consistent processes where Mars, a third house, sixth house, fifth house, is going to have its play.
Absolutely. It definitely rest in peace to FloJo or
Yeah,
whatnot. One
yeah.
of the greats.
One of the greatest.
Indeed. Indeed. Um
Yeah.
Hey Rob, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. We didn't even talk about this one, but look at Steph Curry. Yeah. And this is just y'all to see that
Mars in the
it's
six. I didn't even take no time. It took me no time. Took me no time. Mars in the sixth house. Instant. Instant. But no brainer, right? I
right.
mean, easy stuff, right? Mars in the sixth house, the house of competitiveness, right? And here's the thing. The sixth house deals with tests, right? Testing, being tested, being tried and true. That's another way of saying the sixth house is a house of test or being tested, being tried and true. Mars is there. Mars has that dominance, that ability to say, you know what? Doesn't matter. Bring it on. I'll bring.
Right.
You gotta. In order to get some, you gotta bring some. Well, I'm gonna bring it. So dead on. Steph Curry, Mars in the sixth house, athlete, right? Top premier athlete. So, I mean, I don't know about y'all folks, but it's a consistent theme. It's almost like you don't even have to think it's gonna be there. So if you, like I said, if you got your babies, your grandbabies, your even younger siblings, or someone that you know, and you look at their chart and they have the ability to guide and nudge them in a direction, put them in something and see the magic, right? See the magic, and they will actually gravitate towards it probably before you even get to the point. But see, test the theory, right? See how it works, and by all means, right, you will have someone on your hands that can literally, right, might even be able to change the trajectory of your family, of your community, of your lineage. So, use this science, folks. It is no joke. Don't sleep, right? Don't sleep.
And another thing too, he has that Parvatan
He
between Mars
does.
and Jupiter.
He sure does. He sure does.
And
Yeah. Strong Parvatana. Sixth, 10th house. Career, or, limelight, being in the spotlight. Man, come on. Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and Steph Curry, he had to work for it. He was a little shorter. He didn't get his basketball height until he was in college.
Also,
You
he
know?
did. He was shorter in his earlier years.
Oh yeah, he was like, I mean, he was like, he might have even been shorter than me. He might have been 5'9" or something like that.
Wow, that's
He
healthy
hit a
short for
growth.
that. That's short
He hit
for a ball player. Yeah.
he hit a growth spurt because he used to look like a little kid. You know,
Wow. Wow. So, yeah, man, look, don't sleep, right? You might not think it, and then all of a sudden, here's something that comes out of nowhere, right? So, follow through. Get these, young ladies and men into their professions where they can be utilized. I don't know any. I didn't look at any swimmers off top, but I'm sure it's there, right? Any type of athleticism, it's going to be there somewhere, somehow, some way, for sure. So good curveball, right? We knocked that one out the park. Right.
indeed. You want to look at maybe one or two more?
Yeah, let's do a couple for sure.
Um, so I got Muhammad Ali.
The greatest of all time.
Shout out to Muhammad.
Rest in power, rest in peace. Dead ringer again. Dead ringer again. Right. Where is Mars? 10th house. Profession, career, limelight. The rope a dope. Right. The rope a dope. Mars aspects the ascendant. Mars aspects the fifth house. Rope a dope. And think about his boxing style. That man could take punishment. Ken Norton. Ken Norton. Ken Norton. I don't know if y'all remember Ken Norton. Go look at Ken Norton and look at Muhammad Ali. Look at George Foreman. George Foreman is not a little. I mean, these are massive men to take abuse from, and to just smile and be, on, like you said, a rope a dope. Be, bobbing and weaving, and tiring him out, and then comes in and does his thing. So I mean, come on now, right? That's Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries. You can take abuse in your career. You could take a brutal beating in your profession. You could take and put all that energy somewhere else away and literally keep going and then be victorious. Not all the time, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, his record speaks for itself. So you got to understand, right? You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but he won more, way more than he lost. So by all means, right? Considering, the style and the prestige and the banter, right? He is a 100% quintessential addition to the boxing history of the planet. So by all means, right? He speaks for himself. I mean, he is considered the greatest of all time. He's not Mike Tyson now, right? Mike Tyson's brutal. Mike Tyson's not a boxer per se. He's more of a what does he call him? I can't remember the name, right? But he's not the style that bounces on his legs. He comes full force at you, and you got to maneuver from Mike Tyson. You can't just stand toe to toe. You're gonna get knocked out. So you have to have some supreme boxing skill to be able to deal with Mike. Now I've seen Mike, and I mean some of the tactics and the techniques that he used. They're boxing, but I'm saying in the sense of when I'm talking about footwork, leg work, bobbing and weaving, and using certain. Mike, that's not Mike's game. Mike is kill and destroy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
again, right? In fact, uh, Mike Tyson, looking at his chart right here, you can see is that moon aspected by Mars?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And guys, this we don't have a firm time
We
on
don't.
Mike Tyson,
Right.
so just
It's
but
purported
this
that he's a
this.
Leo ascendant as well, right? I would say
Mm-hmm.
between Gemini and Leo, we got a good kind of, competitive, kind of comparison. But either one, if you look at Leo, either one, Mars is supremely in play. In fact, see if you can swing it to Leo, right? And watch what happens. Watch what happens, folks, when it becomes Leo.
I wouldn't even be surprised if it was Cancer.
It wouldn't shock me. It would not be like un inconsiderable, but take a look. Look at that. Moon is
Hold
still
on,
in Scorpio, right? In
let me
the
bump it
Ascendant
up one more
Lord
time.
is in there.
There you go.
Look at that. Ascendant Lord is conjunct what? Mars. I'm not Ascendant Lord conjunct Mars. Mars is in the 10th conjunct Venus,
Yeah,
right? So don't matter how you cut it, Mars is in play. And that moon being aspected by Mars per any ascendant in Scorpio definitely, definitely gives him that competitive and that um, win at all cost disposition. He is a win at all cost. He'll bite your ear off, right? If he doesn't win, right? That's some serious drive to win, right? So, every single chart we've looked at, folks, hands down, right, has this particular combination. And this is how you begin to repetitiously verify the power of the science by just picking them blindly, putting them into the equation, and seeing what's produced. And you'll see it. You will not have to guess or not have to wonder if Mars is prominent in their chart in the sense of aspecting, conjuncting, or dealing with these points that we covered. So by all means, right, or the sixth house as we covered, right, sixth lord, sixth house, third house. So these are things that you can take to the bank. You could write a check with it. So when we say the power of astrology is real, and this cannot be done via Western astrology, folks, keep that in mind. I know you Western astrologers are good out there with your techniques, but this is not something you can do. And I'm talking about just consistently, so right,
Right.
just every single time it's there, not something you can do. And if you can, I challenge you to do so.
Not
So,
without stretching. I mean,
right,
it's not without
you're
fudging
going to
and
be pulling,
stretching.
right. Without a doubt, definitely,
Start talking.
yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes, Virgo can be, with the start.
Here we go. Get fudging. If you fudge, we fudge, right? You come
Right.
start fudging. No, we don't fudge. We straight cut it and slice it and let you see it. Right.
Yep. Indeed, indeed. Big ups to that. So as usual, this was episode 21, right? Yeah, episode 21 of season 5, episode 121 overall. Big up to that or whatnot. This episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon or whatnot. And yeah, we're rounding up this season. We got some good episodes coming, especially a banger to wrap the season up. So definitely
You
be on the
definitely don't
lookout for
want to
that.
miss that one, y'all. I'm telling you, right?
Absolutely.
Don't miss, because you're gonna be like, wow, that's you definitely want to spread the news on that one, because if you can be timed in, it's gonna be something that we all can benefit from and really understand how we can use this science to really become a more effective person, community, and a people. So definitely stay tuned.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And, without dragging it along anymore, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be back with another great episode, episode 22 on the way. You guys be safe out there. And we are out.